All right, I've got a 49ers update for you on this Friday afternoon. You can add another name to the defensive coordinator interview list. It is Gerald Alexander, 39-year-old who was recently hired by the Raiders, but hasn't actually coached a game for the Raiders. He's been with the Steelers over the past 2 years, previously with the Miami Dolphins and actually with Cal. I remember covering a little bit of Gerald Alexander when he was the defensive backs coach at Cal. But former NFL safety joins the interview list for the 49ers. And you might have noticed on the thumbnail, the 49ers flirted with Steve Spagnuolo to be their defensive coordinator, one of the great DCs of all time. Obviously has beaten them twice in the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Spagnuolo has already signed a contract extension to stay with the Chiefs, and that happened just a couple days after the end of the season, after the Super Bowl. According to Diana Rossini, who's the one that reported this flirtation with Steve Spagnuolo, it probably happened in between the Super Bowl and that contract extension. What does this tell us? Well, it means the 49ers, I think, are geared for a big fish, or at least were geared for a big fish or interested in one at that defensive coordinator position. Obviously, Steve Spagnuolo is about as big of a fish as fish get at this position because he's done so much over the course of his career. He was the coordinator of the Giants when they knocked off the 18-0 Patriots. He has won two Super Bowls with the Chiefs against the 49ers, plus one more with the Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. So Steve Spagnuolo is the real deal. You might as well aim higher for the 49ers, but obviously that did not come to fruition as Spagnuolo decided to stay with Kansas City on the contract extension. What's interesting to me is, Spagnuolo obviously didn't officially interview. So now we have the full interview list, which also includes Gerald Alexander. Not a lot of defensive play calling experience at the NFL level on this list. And it makes you wonder if the 49ers still have an ace up their sleeve here, but no defensive play calling experience for Gerald Alexander, who interviewed today. Alexander, the DB coach. I will say he's got a feather in his cap. Two of his secondaries have led the league in interceptions. The 2020 Miami Dolphins, it's when Xavier Howard had that really big season, I think, with 10 picks. And the 2022 Steelers finished tied with the 49ers for the NFL lead in interceptions. So Gerald Alexander has done a documented good job as an NFL DB coach, but it does not have NFL play calling experience. Daniel Bullocks is the 49ers DB coach, no play calling experience. David Merritt, I talked about Steve Spagnuolo and the fact the 49ers flirted with him, according to our Diana Rossini. She's part of the Athletic. David Merritt is an assistant of Steve Spagnuolo. Merritt's been with Spagnuolo with the New York Giants. He's been with Steve Spagnuolo with the Kansas City Chiefs. Merritt actually has more Super Bowl championships than Spagnuolo. He's got 5, but no play calling experience. Nick Sorensen, no defensive play calling experience. And Brandon Staley is the only one on this list of 5 that does have that play calling experience. Obviously a head coach of the Chargers over the past 3 years. Before that, he was the Los Angeles Rams defensive coordinator, where he did a really good job in 2020. So what does it all mean? Well, again, I keep on mentioning Jeff Ulbrich. I don't know if that's going to be possible. Somebody like Ulbrich or even Gus Bradley, who's with the Indianapolis Colts, either of those two guys would have to obtain permission to break their contract and interview with the 49ers. And without any sweetening of the pot, I don't see what the incentive for the Jets or the Indianapolis Colts would be to do that for San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan did mention that earlier this week that he hoped to have the defensive coordinator search done by today, by the end of the week. And it looks like they're still interviewing. We could get news at any point, but right now we have the interview list that I tossed up on the screen. This is the yes or the no's are based on play calling experience, and that's all that we have at the moment. So all I could do is report the facts. I can tell you what is speculation. Obviously, the Ulbrich stuff is speculation, but he does check a lot of the boxes that the 49ers have said that they're looking for. I can tell you that John Lynch mentioned that the fact that Brandon Staley is running a different type of scheme or has run a different type of scheme would not disqualify him. They think that Staley is smart enough to adapt to what the 49ers are running. But to me, I look at that and I say, well, that seems a little bit reminiscent of the Steve Wilks experiment, where the 49ers were trying to mesh two systems together, and it obviously didn't work all too well. That being said, Staley's a different coach than Steve Wilks. A couple other notes on here. I mentioned Gerald Alexander has helmed twice has helmed NFL leading defenses in terms of interceptions. Obviously, David Merritt has quite the resume as a DB coach of the Giants and the Chiefs under Steve Spagnuolo. Look at Nick Sorensen. One thing about him is that he's a former quarterback, got an interesting background. Gerald Alexander, by the way, played for Boise State in that Boise State-Oklahoma game back in 2007, the one where the guy proposed to his girlfriend after scoring the winning touchdown in overtime, the Statue of Liberty game. So Gerald Alexander has a crazy college football story, but so does Nick Sorensen. Nick Sorensen was actually the quarterback at Virginia Tech before Michael Vick took over. So this is a while ago now, but this is just a little detail that I want to throw out there because Kyle Shanahan has liked this in his coaching staff. Remember, Shanahan's somebody that started as a defensive quality control assistant for John Gruden in Tampa Bay. That was his first NFL job. Kyle credits a lot of his initial upbringing on the defensive side of the ball for how he's good at the offensive play calling. And a lot of other coaches who know about Kyle Shanahan, they say that he knows both offense and defense, and that's what makes him good head coaching material. Anyway, when you look at Nick Sorensen, who's one of the candidates for the 49ers defensive coordinator job, Sorensen, he's got not only special teams coach experience, he filled in a pinch for Jacksonville in 2021, but he was a college quarterback at Virginia Tech. And it ultimately was Michael Vick who came into Virginia Tech and took his job, and Nick Sorensen changed sides to safety, and then he was a safety and special teams ace over several seasons in the NFL. The reason I bring this up is because Shanahan has liked the quarterback's perspective at different position coach jobs. Brian Fleury, for example, he's the 49ers tight ends coach. He was a college quarterback at Towson University. And Shanahan loves the fact that Fleury used to be a quarterback because he could see the game through the lens of the QB. That's probably more important on the offensive side of the ball because he can coach the tight ends to be seeing it like a quarterback so they can always be in the right spot for Brock Purdy or whoever's under center for the 49ers. But I think there still is something to be said about the former QB's mindset and vision, even in a role on the defensive side of the ball. And the 49ers brought Nick Sorensen in as a defensive assistant this past year. He may not have defensive play calling experience, but Nick Sorensen does have the quarterback's background, which I do think is significant in this case. All right, one more piece of the update, more salary cap room for the San Francisco 49ers. Today, the official salary cap rollover from unused space or credits from the 2023 season was released. So how this works is that the salary cap has likely to be earned and not likely to be earned incentives. And something's based as likely to be earned if a player earned it the year before. So say that you have a incentive for 8 touchdown catches. If a player had 9 touchdown catches the season before, that incentive counts as likely to be earned, and it counts against the salary cap for that given season. However, if that incentive is not met, even if it was likely to be earned, a team gets a refund for that incentive. So long story short, the 49ers got about $5.7 million in refunds from incentives that were not met last season in 2023. That was added to their adjusted salary cap. So now the 49ers cap size is $296.6 million for this 2024 season. How do we get that? Well, we take the standard salary cap of $255.4 million. We add the fact that the 49ers had about $35 to $36 million of carryover, unused carryover. I was able to, we were using the estimate of 38 million, but the actual number, which has now been crunched, is 35 to 36 million, plus about I think I said 5.7 million or 5.9 million of incentives that got refunded to them. That adds up to an adjusted cap size of $296.6 million. The 49ers have the largest adjusted cap in the league this year. A 53-man cap projection like the one that I've made here says that the 49ers have 40 players on the 53 under contract with about $18.6 million left to spend. This is before they make any restructures. So my main point is the 49ers are in very good position cap-wise to retain this year. I've done the math. There are a lot of people on the internet that haven't done the math, that are talking as if they know something. Well, we actually have done the work, so we do know something. We do see that the 49ers have space before any restructures in 2024. We do see that the 49ers actually have space in 2025. I'm assuming a cap of $275 million. You could even assume a cap of $280 million, probably, given how much that rose. So put in $280 million. That's $41.3 million still for the 49ers to use in 2025. Now, only 27 players under contract. Brock Purdy still has a small cap number. Obviously, they're going to take a big chunk into that. But you could see the planning for the 49ers. You could see there's more cap room projected for next year to fit Purdy. And if we want to get really deep into things, cutting players next year or trading players next year would be a whole lot easier than it is this year. So this is a year about retention for the 49ers. They want to run it back, and they also want to add some names to the mix as they move forward. All right, so that's your 49ers update. Little Steve Spagnuolo nugget. Obviously, the 49ers not going to be getting Steve Spagnuolo. He signed that extension with the Chiefs, but Diana Rossini with some nice intel there leads me to believe they're still probably trying to swing big at that defensive coordinator position. But they have also conducted a lower profile interview for Gerald Alexander, DB coach who has seen some success around the league, but obviously not somebody with play calling experience. And that to me is the most fascinating part of this defensive coordinator search. There's your update. I've got a roll. I'll talk to everybody very soon.